So it will take a little ways, but it must be done. And we must obviously push this with the optimum will at our disposal during this period of time.
Mr. Yunkala, you wanted to...
I just thought I may make a footnote on what Minister has said. You asked us about examples of where things are working, but I think also when she gave the analysis now for PIB, I think the countries that are discovering new oil and gas deposits or are looking at their own energy sectors in Africa should also learn about what they should not do.
Right, exactly.
What they should not do.
Is that a message
and
for
what
countries like Ghana or...
Yeah. So one of the issues, I say this public, because we're campaigning heavily on that, and I was telling Minister the other day, I need the leadership of Nigeria. We must also now begin to look at gas flaring reduction. We're launching a global initiative backed by the Secretary General President of the World Bank and others, because we believe that gas can be used to help economies. But it's not just simply by banning it. It's exactly what Minister said. What are the public policies to incentivize? What are the public policies to create more companies like what Wale has? Because we need the LPG. Let me give you a number. Globally, we have 4 million premature deaths every year due to household air pollution. So a lot of charcoal, some of the kerosene, and other biomass that are used. 4 million premature deaths, 70 to 80% women and children. It's worse than HIV, AIDS, and malaria combined. Now, we cannot solve that problem, save 4 million lives, if we don't have those LPG markets, if we don't have those LPG canisters. Now, that's not government. That's companies like his, maybe, but we need maybe 50 more. So my point here is, and that's the advocacy we're doing across Africa. When Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda announce they have oil and gas, we say, great. Now they leapfrog. Now they will not do what we did wrong in the West. But at the same time, when newer players, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and others are all announcing their finds, we're saying, can you learn from those mistakes? And you say, fine, we do it different. We create incentives, but we also ask government. Because I pitied the minister as she was listing some of the obstacles. I say, wow, I wish it was automatic, as I see in Europe or even in Latin America, where the parliament says, this policy is great, we fast track. We drive it and get it done in a year. But Wale does not have to wait 19 years for public policy to be done. The guy has borrowed money already.
We have a question here. Yes, sir.
My name is Faye. Just a quick follow-on question to the Minister about the PIB. Has the PIB gotten too big to be passed out once? And is there a place for breaking it up and passing it just to get rid of the current statuses we have right now?
Well, actually, I think that's a really good question because we've been pondering it for some time now. Perhaps I shouldn't say so here, but I do think that it should actually possibly be broken up at this point in time, if that will allow it to move forward in a more expedient fashion, and we deal with it more in modules. But of course, that is something that we have to look at alongside the National Assembly, since it is within their purview. So we are not actually allowed to work on it during this period of time. We can only have discussions with them in terms of where we think it should be moving and when they have issues and questions they want us to answer. But I wanted to quickly say, as a follow-up to what you were saying, that I think that government is in a very strong position and really should take, particularly in emerging economies, the kickstart position in moving areas such as LPG, compressed natural gas, and so on and so forth, into the mainstream economy, because it's quite difficult otherwise. We expect that the private sector will come on board and will actually move it forward for us. But in terms of starting it off, we've actually put in place a very comprehensive program, and pilot projects are now moving out. Compressed natural gas, which a lot of Nigeria doesn't know much about, already has a couple of pilot projects in the Delta state, and they have been highly successful, particularly with taxi drivers. Unfortunately, they have been so successful, the taxi drivers, that they are hiding them from their counterparts and colleagues because they don't want them to know how little they are now paying to motor their vehicles. So that hasn't helped us at all. We're now looking for other ways, of advertising our find and for moving it into other cities, because the cost of changing around their engines is actually very little. So we're doing all that right now. But these appear to be little drops in the ocean when you look at a country of 160-something plus, million people, and the deficit that we have in the country, particularly in terms of gas and gas infrastructure. Now, I was saying to the Power Africa chaps in one of our energy sessions a couple of days ago, and you were there as well, that in terms of powering Africa, we must take a couple of steps back and look at the fundamental infrastructural deficit in the continent. Without the right infrastructure, particularly for gas, of which we have so much, say in Nigeria, we will not be able to power those IPPs, to get the energy that we so desperately need to the people. And gas infrastructure is not built overnight, neither is it cheap. But of course, we have found that there's an amazing deficit in it, which doesn't really exist. So we are actually fighting tooth and nail right now in Nigeria to work from the answer backwards, to the question, to create what we call short-term solutions to getting more gas to power the grids, and then short to medium solutions, while we also work on the long-term solutions in terms of the major gas pipeline backbone infrastructure, which, as I say, is highly capital intensive, and for which we're trying to bring in major investment and PPPs as well to build. So we really have to look at these fundamental questions. We talk about regional integration and cooperation. There is a lot, I think, that can be done, as has been mentioned here, in terms of cross-border solutions, because a lot of the investment that will come into Africa for some of our energy solutions is too big to actually be managed by any one individual nation state. So we do have to work on, cross-border regional integration and solutions for quite a number of our energy needs, while individual nation states also look internally at what they can do or what they must do to move forward. And this is why I said from the beginning that at the end of the day, it becomes a mixed bag. Because I love these solutions that you are bringing forward. They may be very short-term, they may be very basic, but I think that they need to piggyback on the bigger solutions that governments are pushing. And I think that actually they do need to be brought to the fore and integrated in terms of the government's response. So even though we know they're short-term and they're not the greater solution, they do serve a major critical purpose for us.
Yeah. And I just want to add, we've really seen government policy make a huge difference in the adoption of these technologies. In East Africa, for several years, there have been no duties and no VAT tax on these products. And as a result, there's been huge market share that's opened up for these products. So in Kenya now, it's nearly 10% of these off-grid households have at least some solution for lighting that's not burning kerosene. And that's amazing. That's an amazing transformation over just 4 or 5 years. Nigeria, there has been duties, and it's recently been waived. So I have to say thank you to the minister for that, because that's really going to
incentives, yeah.
Right. Well, it's really going to open up the market, and it helps put our products and these types of solutions at a more level playing field. Kerosene is still subsidized, so it's not a completely level playing field, but it's a more level playing field, and something that is going to really allow these types of innovative solutions. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to just be these types of products. I mean, there's a range, but market forces are going to be more free to compete and have these types of innovations transform the market in ways that we can't really imagine today. Anyway, I have to say thank you for that.
Can I just very quickly mention, because it comes up a lot, the gas flaring issue. And we were one of course, the greatest offenders over the years. But we have vastly reduced, and I remember the Shell Exploration and Production Global Bosses were saying this a couple of days ago in the Energy Forum. In Nigeria, we have vastly reduced our gas flaring profile. We expect that by 2020, we will be within the acceptable margins. There is no such thing as complete removal of gas flaring. It comes naturally with any E&P operation anywhere in the world, but there are internationally accepted parameters for gas flaring. And by 2020, we should have got there. But the way to get there, which is the way we are going, is to ensure that there's a complex framework in place, which includes, as I said, the central processing facilities, the LPG facilities and distribution we're talking about, and of course, major industrial gas entities such as petrochemical plants, and fertilizer plants, methanol entities as well. So